Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. And today I have an old friend with me, Anungla. Namaste.
Yeah, thank you.
Where is your home? Tell us about your home, and
I like to say my home is here.
there we are.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But originally I hail from Nagaland.
Nagaland.
Yeah, that's where I was born. But I grew...
In the hills?
It's in the hills, yeah, in northeast India. But I was born there, but my parents moved to another state in the northeast, to a place called Shillong. So,
Shillong,
yeah,
yes.
so Shillong is where I grew up.
Ah.
Yeah.
How did you first hear about Sri Aurobindo and Mother? And what age were you, approximately?
I can't quite say what age I was, but in Shillong, there is actually an Sri Aurobindo Institute.
Oh.
And then we had all these friends while we were growing up. We had all these friends who would, our boy friends, male friends, who would go to Mother's gym. They would be like, okay, we're going to go and work out in Mother's gym. And I was very intrigued. I was like, it's a very odd sort of a name, like Mother's gym. And so it turned out that this gym where they had some weights and workout stuff was in the Sri Aurobindo Institute over there. And but I didn't at that time, besides being intrigued by the name Mother's Gym, I didn't really know exactly what this Sri Aurobindo Institute was. Then later on, I discovered a small store in the Sri Aurobindo Institute called the Divine Shop. And so I would go to the Divine Shop and pick up, agarbattis and soaps and some, handmade stuff from the ashram. And there would always be a little quote, that they would put up on a board. And then I would read them sometimes, but it never really drew me more than just that, that kind of thing. And then there was a time when I lived in Bombay, and I discovered a really small shop called Orocraft, and that's where they would keep all these beautiful things made in Oroville. And I would go also there to pick up gifts and, agarbattis and soaps and stuff like that. But it took me, 2009, that's when I came here. So it was only in 2009 when I actually landed up here in Pondicherry.
So you came to Pondicherry before Oroville?
Yes. Yeah, I arrived in Pondicherry first, and it wasn't really for the ashram. I didn't come with that kind of thing. I was going through a time of transition in my life when I just had this very strong feeling that I just needed to step out of whatever I was doing, and it was a very strange feeling, and I never really understood what it was that I was going through. But the very strong feeling I had at that time was that I needed to be near the ocean. But I had no idea. And all my friends would say, they were trying to help me because I was really confused. And
what work were you doing then?
I was doing a lot of music-related work. Yeah, creating events and managing bands and things like that. And the only strong feeling that I had was I had to be near the ocean.
And how did your friends help you?
So then they started to suggest, what about Goa? And I was like, not Goa, not that kind of culture. Then they were like, Kerala, it's near the ocean. I was like, it just didn't call me somehow. So then a friend of mine who lives in Bangalore, and she's the mother of my goddaughter, my best friend. So she said, Anungla, what about Pondicherry? Why don't you try Pondicherry? It's a small enough place. The ocean is there, but it's totally different from the Goa beach culture. And it's close enough to Bangalore, should you, whatever. So that's what I did. I first landed up in Bangalore. And but I still wasn't making a decision. I don't know why. So then after a week of being in Bangalore, then my friend Anshu, her husband Jason, one evening he just said, "All right, everybody, we are all driving to Pondicherry." And so the next day, that's what we did. We just all jumped into the vehicle, into his Scorpio. And I told Anshu and Jason, I was like, "Look, if Pondicherry doesn't like me, or I don't like Pondicherry, I'm coming right back with you." And they said, "Deal," So we had a nice drive to Pondicherry, and we arrived towards the evening, and we found a guest house. It was my first time in Pondicherry. My friends had been here before. So we found a guest house just on Rue Duma, and we checked in, and then I just put my things in my room, and I walked out to the ocean. And I don't know, I just sat in front of the ocean and the tears wouldn't stop flowing. And it was not like grief kind of crying. I just couldn't understand it, and I just sat there, and it was just so relieving. And I think I sat there for an hour, I think, and I couldn't stop the tears flowing. And then I knew, I just knew that
This was your place.
This was my place, yes.
And you mentioned that your parents had been here before?
Oh, no, not my parents, my friends.
Oh, your friends had
with
been
whom
here
I
before.
drove down here.
So now let's talk a moment about Oroville.
Yes.
And your experiences there.
Mm-hmm.
There must be many of them.
Of
course, I've seen you in the Om Choir so many times.
Yes, it's...
and that's a blessing for me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do in Oroville, and what did you experience there?
It's not very easy to put it into words. I think the best. Yeah, I like to think that I became more me in Oroville. Yeah, and I actually wanted to step out of the life that I was living. I was really aspiring to live a different kind of life, but it was just not easy at all, because I just felt a bit alone, and everything, everybody around me, like, okay, this is the life, but I just knew there had to be a better world, like this is a very strong feeling that I have, that there had to be a better world than, what it was that I
and
was
this was all prior
experiencing.
to your coming here?
Yeah, this was prior to my coming here. And in all the work that I was doing, managing artists and creating music and artistic events and all that, after a while it was like about 15 years of doing that, I just felt a bit, kind of got a bit fed up, in the sense I didn't find any more meaning in it. And I would look at some of the artists and think of, why am I doing so much to create a platform for them, when I felt that they were not there, on the platform for the right reasons. I don't know what it was, but I just felt that there was something insincere about the reason why they were up on that platform and all. So then I began to think that, okay, now I just need to step out of this and try to explore my own creativity, and, because I was putting that aside all the time. And I would be scribbling notes and writing notes and just throwing them, into a box. So, I had lots of my diaries. So when I traveled here, I had a suitcase with like small corner for just some clothes, and the rest was just all my diaries and my notes and my everything. Yeah, and my guitar. I had a small guitar. So that was my luggage when I came here. So I lived in Ponti for a year, and it took me, I thought I would be here just for a few months, just to work on my writing and make some sense of all the stuff that I had scribbled. But before I knew it, it was just 1 year already, and then actually it became 6 years in the end. Yeah, when I came. And I lived 1 year in Pondi, and during which time 2 months I was just walking around, and then I decided, okay, I think I can manage the traffic. So I bought myself a cycle, and that's when I used to cycle down to Oroville just to explore Oroville. Yeah, just find all these paths and just cycle in there, and that's how I met people and I discovered places, and I just began to feel very welcome. Yeah.
In
and
Oroville?
Yes, and
How
very
about in
accepted.
the ashram?
In the ashram as well. In the ashram as well. I mean, it was amazing because, I don't know, I just like to describe it like everything, all the doors were just opening in a way, And the interesting thing was the people in the ashram thought I was from Oroville, and people from Oroville thought I was from ashram. So it was a bit of a thing like that, But
did you find Oroville different from the ashram, and in what way?
Well, it's a lot more lively in many ways,
Yes.
And everybody's it's a different pace, it's like two different paces. In ashram, it's much more, you can say, gentle, slow, in a way, this from my experience. And then when in Oroville, it would just be like much more fast-paced and a lot of things happening, But at the same time, there was also, I don't know if I should say it, but there was a sort of a coldness as well in Oroville, which I experienced. Yeah. Some element of it, which is different again from ashram, because I found here a lot more warmth.
Yes. Well, I think with, especially in these years, with so many new people coming in, Oroville has grown rather quickly.
Yes.
In the last years.
Yes.
And many different types are there because they have to be there.
They have to be there. That's what I understood also.
Yes, good.
I was like, yeah, that's what Mother said. Everybody has,
Have you read any books of Sri Aurobindo and Mother?
Yes, I have. So when I arrived here, I started looking for a place to stay because I knew I wanted to stay for a long time, but I couldn't afford the normal kind of guest houses. So I began searching, and eventually I found Mother's house, the guest house here, and that's where I stayed for 1 year.
There for 1 year.
Yeah. And so then December came around, and it was still in November of 2009 when Regina, who runs Mother's house.
Yes, I know her well.
So Regina was like, Anungla, you have to go to the theatre, ashram theatre. The school is putting up a play, and you must be there. So I was like, what is the play about? And that year it was on Sri Aurobindo. So I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to go and see that play. So the first thing I did was I went to Sabda and I asked the gentleman there, I said, can you give me a small tiny book, which will just take me like 5-10 minutes to read, and I'll know everything about Sri Aurobindo. Exactly, that gentleman, he laughed, and then he brought me a very small tiny book and a big fat book, and he said, read this, in 10 minutes you'll know, and when you have more time, read this one, you'll get a lot more in-depth kind of information on Sri Aurobindo. So so that was the first thing, and I went to the ashram theatre, and I found a small cafe nearby, so I quickly read. And even as I was reading this little tiny booklet, I was just like, yes, that's the only thing, that's the only way I can describe it. I just felt this Yeah, it was just yes. Yeah. And then after that, I began to, talk to other guests in mother's house and about, books. And I checked the library downstairs. And everybody told me, Savitri, no, Savitri is the most tough one. No, no, you mustn't, you must pick up the other easy ones. So I went to Sabda, and the first book I picked up was Savitri. That small volume with a small print.
Yes,
I still have it. So, yes, that's one thing that I love to read in the sense. So I don't read it cover to cover. Haven't read it cover to cover or anything. But the way I found that works for me is if I just at random open up a page, and then something
read some lines.
Yeah, and something always jumps up. Yeah. And yeah, that's how I read Savitri. I don't.
That's wonderful.
I haven't read it like in the linear way, in that way. And of course, then I picked up Letters on Yoga, all the 3 volumes.
The what?
The letters.
The letters on yoga.
Yeah, the 3. Then I learned a lot from reading Adventure of Consciousness by Satprem.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It was a bit difficult for me because I had to keep on going back, and then I would reach a point and then I'd put the book away, and then when I open it, I still have to go back. Yeah, but it was, it's quite an important read for me.
It has been probably the greatest book for Westerners. Adventure of Consciousness.
Yeah.
It opened the way for so many in the West. Yeah. So what are you doing now in Oroville? Or are you here more?
Yeah, so I came here in 2006 and I just lived 6 years. 2009. I came here in 2009 and I lived for 6 years here.
Right in the ashram?
Between Pondicherry and Oroville. Yeah. And then I had to go make a trip to Nagaland because my brother called me and he scolded me, so to say. It was like, you're never around, you're totally out of the family radar, why didn't you come back? At that moment, actually, my mother wasn't feeling very well. So that's when my brother thought I must be there. So I went to Nagaland and thought of spending maybe 3-4 months there. But then it became 3 years over there.
Oh.
So the thing is, like I had mentioned earlier, I grew up somewhere else. So when I landed up in Nagaland, it's a pretty new place to me, Yeah. And then I started, I got a project to do as soon as I landed up there, actually. And this project was to make a book on the folklore of Eastern Nagaland, which is the remote area of Nagaland bordering with Myanmar. So I started to get involved in this, and it took me 14 months of travel and collecting stories and songs from all the villages, and another 5-6 months transcribing and translating and writing out the stories and all. So yeah, the time just went like that. So I made this book, then I got involved in some filmmaking work. Films division, when I landed up there in Nagaland, Films division happened to be doing this filmmaking workshop. And it was my mother who said, join it. And at that time, I was thinking of going into the studio to record some of my songs. And I told my mother, I was like, 9 days, I will lose 9 days in the studio, if I join this filmmaking workshop. And she said, in 9 days' time, you'll learn something new. So then I couldn't argue with her. I said, yeah, Mom, that's true. So then I joined this workshop, and then I just loved it. I just found it was the perfect medium, for my writing, my music, and my love for, the visuals and photography and, like that. So after I did the workshop, made a student film together with other participants, And somehow the student film that we made, it got screened in the Mumbai International Film Festival. And they sent us tickets to come there, and be in the festival there. So then suddenly I was in the film, world, so to say.
Yeah.
Yes. Met a lot of filmmakers, saw a lot of films, different kinds of films. And I think, I think this is just waiting for me. I mean, I just love this medium of film. So when after the festival in Bombay, I came back to Nagaland, and I started to assist some friends who make films over there. And these films that we made were also, it took us traveling into the interiors, because we were following a farmer, and the work that was going on in these villages, where with livelihood, education, health, so so that was interesting again, because it was filmmaking, but films after my own heart. Like, they were like documentaries where we would meet the village folk, and that kind of thing. So I don't know what was your question, but I got a lot involved in this kind of things.
Yes.
So,
but when did you come back here then?
Just this January 2019.
Ah.
Yeah. So in the meantime, I worked on another book. After the folklore book came out, then one feminist publishing house from Delhi, they approached me and asked me if I would be the editor of this book that they were wanting to have made. They were looking for women writers, new Naga women writers. So they asked me to make the book. So then, I've never really done this kind of thing before, but I just thought it is too interesting, So then I began to meet writers, authors, and poets, and I asked them to send me stuff, that they've written. And so it took me 5 months actually, to work on this. It was not really enough time. I had to really work day in, day out like that. But it's a fact now. This book is out.
It came together nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And in this book too, in the folklore book, I included a lot of illustrations by young Naga artists. And in this second book too, I included illustrations by Naga women artists, because I felt that that's also a language,
Yes.
Yeah. So this book contains short stories, personal accounts, essays, poems, and illustrations as well. Yeah.
When you said you were going out again briefly for a while and coming back again here. When you come back here, do you have anything in your mind or consciousness about what you will do?
Actually, I've started a textbook project here. There's a unit in Oroville called Wasteless, and I'm an advocate for sustainable living and waste management. And this was one thing that I was trying to live like this before I came here, segregating my waste, and everybody would be telling me, why are you even bothering? It's all going to go into the same dump, But I thought, okay, leave me alone. I just want to, cultivate this habit. So when I reached Oroville, I was so relieved to find that people are living exactly like how I was wanting to live, So then, Wasteless in Oroville, one of the things that they've done is they have signed a simple MOU with the Tamil Nadu government, and they have managed to include one chapter on plastics and waste management in the science textbooks.
Oh.
Yes, of the Tamil Nadu curriculum. I mean, the science education.
System.
Yes. So I because even I agree with them that it's education. That's what we need, education. We cannot keep cleaning up after people. Otherwise, you'll be doing it the rest of our lives.
It won't stop.
Yeah, it won't stop. So it's it's based on the analogy, I suppose, of when you come home and you find that your house is flooding up because of an open tap. What would you do? What's the first thing you do? Would you swab up the floor or would you close the tap? So based on that, Wasteless are doing a lot of research. It's now 7 years of research that they're doing on plastics, and they have made a chart. It's the plastic resin code, where legally, actually by law, any plastic item must have this plastic code at the bottom or the cap
yes,
or something.
I've seen the code.
Yeah, it's the chasing triangle with the code number. So so Wasteless have included this one chapter with the resin code poster and a lot of very relevant information on how children can learn, what is this material, and what is the safer plastic, and what is the absolutely no, the harmful plastic, and how exactly do you manage waste, and what are the alternatives to using plastic containers or packaging and stuff like that. And I feel that in this science book, with this chapter is the information in this chapter is going to be something that is going to be relevant in the child's life for the rest of his or her life. I feel that a student, after passing class 10 or even class 12, is going to forget half the things in that science book. But this chapter, I feel, is going to be something that stays, And so this is my aspiration to make it happen in Nagaland. So I have already spoken with the government in Nagaland, spoken with the education department, and opened up this subject with them of trying to get this in. It is not an easy thing because, they would need to rework this textbook and reprint it and all that. But I feel it's worth an effort. So this is one thing that I'm working on right now. I've brought the textbooks from Nagaland for Wasteless, for Ribu to have a look at. And Ribu has given me the textbooks from Tamil Nadu, which on my last trip to Nagaland, I took it there. And I showed it, handed it over to the education department there for them to have a look and, just so that they'll know exactly what it is. So this is one project that I would really like to make, to happen. Another thing is Svaram. There is another unit called Svaram, which makes
Aurelio very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now they're very interested in sourcing some bamboo from Nagaland for making their bansuris and all the bamboo instruments. So yeah, I would love that to work out as well. And when I first came here in 2009, I did a lot of writing. I've written a lot of
biographical mostly, or on different themes, subjects?
On different things, mainly about being in Orville and being in ashram and my whole experience here. Biographical, I think, because everything, for me, everything that I write, comes from something, from my experience or from something, biographical. Yes. So it's in one big heap. So I know that I need to sit down and make sense of it. But that's one thing also that I would really like to.
Where do you live in Orville when you stay there?
I live in Samasti.
Samasti.
Yeah. All these years I've been mostly house sitting in Orville. Yeah, wherever I find a place. Once or twice I rented out a place just outside Orville, the Green Belt. Yeah, near the Green Belt. This time, Ratna offered me her guest room. So yeah, I feel very grateful to have a nice place to stay. Yeah,
Wonderful.
like that.
Could you tell me a little of your experience in the Om choir?
The first Om choir actually was here in Pondi when I was here. I came here to the video room, at the school, and I don't know. I remember feeling my hair standing, like getting these goosebumps the very first time I was at the Om choir, because it was just unbelievable that, the harmony, and it was just something so divine, It is not anything that I had experienced before, and I was surprised as well that it was something so spontaneous, because when I first heard Om choir, and I think it was Regina again who said, why don't you explore, why don't you go and see what it is about. So the one thing is that the fact that it's so spontaneous, and then in that spontaneity to find this
harmony.
Yes. And it's not always, but quite often it's so divine, that it's just something out of this. I mean, it just lifts me up, just takes me, and sometimes I don't even know, but suddenly there are moments when I just hear myself with the sound that comes out, and I didn't, it's just something that, it's, just that spontaneous, the spontaneous thing of it.
Have you been to the darshans and gone to Sri Aurobindo's room?
Yes, many times, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was living here, I never missed a darshan. And even if it meant sitting hours outside trying to get in, I actually love it. I loved it being, even if there were so many people and then you had to sit on the tarpaulins outside, because then that was when I realized then I needed to, just find my, I don't know what's the word to use.
Maybe your center.
Yes. Yeah.
And to go within to find it.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's always a special, every time, it's always a special thing, for me. There used to be moments when I used to feel a little bit of irritation with the people around, or,
in the big crowd.
Yeah, in the big crowd. But then I began to realize that that's okay. That's all right. It's all part of it. And I shouldn't be concerned about that, kind of thing. So I learned a lot just from sitting outside in the tarpaulin, waiting for my turn to go in, those moments. In the beginning it wasn't easy, but slowly I began to realize that I needed to go through that, I really needed to go through that.
And your experience at the Samadhi?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I've never really been that kind of a person to, I in Shillong when I was growing up, my parents put me into a convent school. That's where I grew up with the nuns and all, and I was a little bit like a rebel, and I was used to get a bit annoyed with the nuns saying, "Oh, you have to do this, kneel down, go to the chapel and pray," and and so I began to do a little bit opposite things,
Sure.
I don't know why I'm saying this, but okay.
But this is very, very, very common, not uncommon.
Okay. So, the nuns used to say like, "Our Father in heaven, our Father in heaven, our Father in heaven," and I used to be like, "What is this, our Father in heaven?" Then I began to pray, just personally, I began to pray to Mother in Heaven. And so till today, when I pray, I still say, Dear Mother in Heaven. So when I arrived here, everywhere it was like mother and mother and mother and mother, and it really struck me. And I was like, what is this? Because spontaneously I always say, Dear Mother in Heaven. So, there's just small little things. And I've never really been a person to visit ashrams or go to, visit these kind of places, holy places and sacred places. But here I just felt at home, and of course I find the Sri Aurobindo ashram very unlike any other ashram anywhere. It's very modern. It's very, it's on another level.
Yes.
It's totally on another level. And samadhi. I remember the first time when I went into the samadhi, the person at the door scolded me. That was the first thing I got, was a scolding. And it was because actually there was a, I don't know, this old gentleman, he gave me a flower. And I'm sorry to say I forgot what that flower is. But he gave me a flower and he told me the significance of it, And I was just surprised that I got this flower in my hands, And then I just walked into the samadhi with this flower in my hand. And then that's why he scolded me. He was like, no flowers, no flowers. I had to bring in flowers. Then this old gentleman, he was just behind me, who gave me the flower. He said, put it into your bag. Just put it into your bag. Very calmly he said that. And then he said, some people have so little power that they have to show it. That's what he said. And that really calmed me, because at first I was irritated. I was like, why is he scolding me? And what's wrong if I have a flower in my hand, But this gentleman, he just calmed me down. And every day I would be at the samadhi when I was, living here. And then I discovered that really I started to enjoy that 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock time when it's actually closed to visitors. But somehow the people at the door, at the gate, they used to just allow me to come in. So I would sit at the steps and watch the ladies change the flowers. And that started to become my habit in a way. Like, I wouldn't come in at the other time.
With the crowds.
Yeah. I would come in at 12 and just sit there quiet, in quiet, and watch the ladies. Or, sometimes I would carry my Savitri book and read. And it was, I don't know, there's something very special there in the samadhi, I find, Even when I'm not here, even when I'm in Nagaland or somewhere else, if I just, think of the samadhi and, I get that feeling back, it's very special. Sometimes I would just sit there and watch the squirrels on the service tree, and watch the little insects. And I don't know, there was just always some profound things that used to happen, some thoughts that used to come to me, or if I read something there, something will just jump up, and then I will just know it. If especially the Savitri, many times when I read it, I'm just like, what is this? What is this? But then I began to discover that if I just take this book and read it when I'm sitting on the steps in the samadhi, somehow, something will just jump up and I will just know it. It was that kind of a thing. And then I'll say, oh yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I don't do that much now, going to the samadhi, because I'm much more in Orville. But then I also realized that I don't have to be physically there, you know?
That's right.
Yeah. I can just, I'm sorry.
No,
I don't know.
it's fine. But the fact that you can feel the samadhi when you're far away, it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. I feel very grateful. You know, I feel grateful because when I'm outside Oroville, Pondicherry, I have to do so much of adjusting. You know, after 6 years of just living here like this,
Yes.
now I feel it's all right also for me to be, you know, go out
Yes,
and to
of
see the
course.
world as it is and to meet the people.
So this is very important.
Yes, I feel that it's also a good test for me, and you know, but there's so much of adjusting to do, always some adjusting. So I feel very grateful that if I, you know, just focus, I can get this feeling back, and then I feel something settle in me again, and you know, I feel.
Have you had any
nice
experiences of Mother or Sri Aurobindo? Anything here?
Yes, for sure.
You don't have to talk about them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I was actually very inspired to write some songs, and I think I may have shared some songs with you. It's a CD that I actually decided to record. So in 2010, I started to all these this song started to come to me, and so I actually in 2011 I found a studio in Oroville, and I recorded these songs. And they're just like 7 songs. But
Did you give me a CD?
I gave you a CD.
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Yeah.
And I just received one last night from this man who came with Aurelio.
Oh.
And Aurelio tells me that he is the preeminent maker of ceramic flutes.
Oh.
And he gave me a CD called The Overhead Vibrations.
Oh.
And I haven't been able to hear it yet, but
wow,
see, all these things come to us when we're united in that one feeling of love and unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you meet Sri Aurobindo?
Did I meet Sri Aurobindo?
In a dream experience, or some people meet him in a dream experience?
Once, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. That's why I think that this I wrote a song that for me was that explained to me
what was happening within, or how?
About Sri Aurobindo and the mother, what it was, and the work that they were doing, you know. Yeah, so it's there in the CD. Yeah, and I actually there's a line in Savitri. Each became the. Wait, I have to remember the tune. I just lost it. Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Okay, it's gone. Yeah, but basically, while reading Savitri, there were just certain lines that really jumped up at me, and then I began to understand the work, you know. Yeah, Sri Aurobindo and the mother's work really, I don't know, I just began to sort of understand it in a way like that, and so I made this song. Yeah. And I actually used the lines from Savitri in the song.
Savitri
Yeah,
in the song.
Yeah, in the song. I was a little unsure about if the ashram would like it or not that I used it. But I spoke to this friend, and he said, "Don't worry about it."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He said, "Don't worry about it. Just let it be."
I have to listen again to your songs. I think I took the CD back to the US.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in that CD, there's a song that I wrote about Oroville. So again, that was just my way of understanding Oroville and what Oroville is about. And basically the whole I did this together with Holger from Oroville. Yeah, so he created the music. He created the music around it, and we made it like a journey through the elements. So the earth is the Oroville song, and it goes into water and fire and air and space. Yeah, and it ends with, for me, the sixth element, which is love, which is the all encompassing element. Yeah. So it's seamless actually. So the songs just flow from one to the other. And yeah. I don't know what happened, but I got inspired to do this in 2010. I did the recording in 2011, but it took me till 2014 when I was finally convinced by family and friends that I should actually put these recordings into a CD. So it took me like 3 years before because for me it's always a struggle. What do I, is it necessary for me to make it public? The things I write and the thoughts that I pen down. So it's always a little bit of a tussle going on with me.
But you're usually guided, I think, in the end.
Yeah, so finally I met Nadaka, who helped me.
Oh.
And because he's made CDs before, so he introduced me to his man who does all the, all that kind of work. So then that's how it was a bit of a headache. Because you have to think of covers and you have to think of, these slightly mental things to make it happen. But so in 2014, it actually became
this has been a wonderful, wonderful talk with you.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Nara.
That you've joined us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.